Hello, and welcome back to Bible Wits Bible Corner. Today we're going to have a bit of a long read. I kind of glanced over this passage and could not find a good breaking point without interrupting the thought process. We're going to be in Matthew chapter 11, and I'm going to read the first 19 verses with the English Standard Version. When Jesus had finished instructing his 12 disciples, he went on from there to teach and preach in their cities. Now, when John heard in prison about the deeds of the Christ, he sent word by his disciples and said to him, "Are you the one who is to come, or shall we look for another?" And Jesus answered them, "Go and tell John what you hear and see. The blind receive their sight, and the lame walk, lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear, and the dead are raised up, and the poor have good news preached to them. And blessed is the one who is not offended by me." As they went away, Jesus began to speak to the crowds concerning John. "What did you go out into the wilderness to see? A reed shaken by the wind? What then did you go out to see? A man dressed in soft clothing? Behold, those who wear soft clothing are in kings' houses. What then did you go out to see? A prophet? Yes, I tell you, and more than a prophet. This is he whom it is written, 'Behold, I send my messenger before your face, who will prepare your way before you.' Truly I say to you, among those born of women, there has arisen no one greater than John the Baptist, yet the one who is least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he. From the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven has suffered violence, and the violent take it by force. For all the prophets and the law prophesied until John, and if you are willing to accept it, he is Elijah who is to come. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. But to what shall I compare this generation? It is like children sitting in the marketplace and calling to their playmates. We played the flute for you, and you did not dance. We sang a dirge, and you did not mourn. For John came neither eating nor drinking, and they said, 'He has a demon.' The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they said, 'Look at him, a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of the tax collectors and sinners.' Yet wisdom is justified by her deeds." Okay, so there is quite a bit in these 19 verses. I'm gonna do my best to work backwards here. So the first thing that I noticed, like I said, working backwards in verses 18 and 19, the Pharisees could not be pleased. The teachers of the law, the Sadducees, whoever it was that Jesus was specifically talking to here, or it could have even just been a crowd of Jews. Either way, they could not be pleased. They saw John the Baptist. He wasn't eating or drinking. Instead, he had a demon. They saw Jesus eating and drinking. They called him a glutton. They called him a friend of sinners. So there was no pleasing any of them. And we can say the same for a lot of people today. There is no pleasing people today, no matter how much truth is put in front of them. Now, continuing to work backwards. Who did you go out to the wilderness to see? And Jesus lists off a couple of things here. To this, my interpretation is they didn't know what they were looking for, but they didn't like what they saw when they saw John the Baptist. They weren't exactly looking for someone that was sickly, kind of being tossed around by the wind. They weren't exactly looking for someone that was well off, well to do. in very soft, king-like clothing. But then Jesus does pinpoint it. He says, were you looking for a prophet? Yes. But John the Baptist was more than a prophet. And again, this crowd of people probably had a hard time accepting that. They did not understand that John the Baptist came to pave the way for Jesus. And now I'll finish off with the followers of John the Baptist. John tells them to go talk to Jesus, so they do. And, I don't know how they reacted. It just says they went off back towards John. But when Jesus told them, hey, tell John what you see and what you hear. You see that I've healed the blind. I've healed the lepers. The dead have risen. You've seen all of this. Go tell him that. Go tell him that the poor is being preached to. Now, the one thing that I want to focus on here, and I'm going to read this as soon as I can find it. Verse 6, and blessed is the one who is not offended by me. So, everything that Jesus did, and I can look at this I can't really look at this from a point of view of being there because I wasn't there. But looking at everything that he did and the people that were around him, watching him do it, yes, there were people that were offended by it. The Pharisees found reasons to accuse Jesus because he did stuff on the Sabbath, or he touched an unclean person, or what have you. They were offended by every little thing that Jesus did. The poor, the sick, the needy were not offended. They were clinging to Jesus. Who has a hard time today accepting Jesus? This is a question for each of us to answer individually. I don't want to sit here and speculate that people down the street that I don't know are not clinging to every word. I do know that, yes, there is still a lot of this happening today where the sick, the needy, the not so well-to-do crowd, they seem to cling to Jesus more than those that are well off, that think they've gotten everything done on their own. But there are also those that are very well off that know that they didn't get there without Jesus. So that's why I say I can't sit here and say what group does what today. Actions speak louder than words, and I think that's another message that Jesus is trying to tell John's disciples here. My actions are showing you who I am. So, yes, his actions showed who he was. Why would we not want to cling to him? Why would we be offended by what he does? I hope you find encouragement in this, and I hope you have a wonderful, God-centered day. Bye.